Are you a business looking for a fresh new way to reach potential customers? Well, you need to get airtime on IT TV, a 24/7 streaming and on-demand TV service online and on Roku. With Roku having a potential reach of 62 million people, it's a perfect opportunity to reach potential customers through affordable commercial and infomercial spots. Visit us online today at itnetwork.tv.
Good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome back to the Roundtable Talk Show. I am your host, Sharifah Hardie, and I have an incredible show for you today. I'm going to introduce you to some new friends, some old friends, and we're just going to learn about business. We're going to talk about business and entrepreneurship, and I want to go ahead and introduce our first guest, Mr. Earl Jones. Earl Jones is an insurance agent. He's a veteran business owner, and he's a rising TikTok star. Good morning, Mr. Jones. How are you?
Good morning, Mrs. Hardie. It's good to see you. How are you?
I am excited. I am fine. Pleasure to be here.
It is so good to be with you again. Just thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do, and what you're passionate about.
So I am Earl Jones. Thanks to my mama and my daddy back in the day, right? They got together before prom or something like that, and I was part of that. And then my passion and what I do is that I ensure that people always have options in the event that things do not go as planned. And I make sure that they have those options. I build a protection around them so that the insurance company looks better to a lawyer than they do. That's that. And then my passion is, as an entrepreneur, is cycling. I do a 545-mile bike ride from San Francisco to Los Angeles, and I raise money to help find a cure for HIV and AIDS. And then my second passion is I have an idea in my head to find a way to turn these old abandoned buildings into housing for homeless and low-income people. And so those are my two things. And as an Army veteran, let me tell you, I'm like, how do I support my veterans? How do I make sure that veterans are getting access to affordable care, the whole 9 yards? And then last but not least, I am an uncle. As a matter of fact, I'm now a great uncle ×2. Mm-hmm.
Wow, wonderful.
I know, because I told them kids they are getting too old to be having children. They need to stop. They need to stop. And so, born and raised from St. Louis, now living out here in the Bay Area. And let me just tell you, just in the words of Dave Matthews, making the best of what's around.
Yes, I love it. I'm so glad you decided to come back on the show and be a guest. It's always a pleasure to speak with you. I will come back to you. I want to go ahead and introduce our next guest, Mr. Shawn Khorrami. Shawn is a serial entrepreneur, having started more than a dozen companies from the ground up and growing them to 8 and 9 figures in revenue. Good morning, Shawn. How are you?
Good morning, Sharifah. How are you?
I'm excited. I love learning, love speaking to my guests. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you? What do you do? And what are you passionate about?
Well, as you said, I mean, it's from a very, very early age. I started my own businesses, and so far I've started over a dozen of them. Some of them have failed, so I have experienced both ways: huge amounts of success and huge amounts of failure, which is part of the reason that people want to come to me in times of really bad crisis. Where they feel overwhelmed, and in times of huge success also where they can be overwhelmed. One thing I tell people is that the one experience I haven't had is that I haven't been an employee. I've never received a W-2 from any company that I haven't actually owned or had ownership interest in. So I don't have that side of it. I've always been the person that kind of drives the business. And what I do right now is exactly what I've been doing, which is helping out businesses, usually small and medium-sized businesses. And we do it through education, investment, and consultation, where we get involved with a business and we help them as long as they meet our criteria. We will partner up with them. We will take the risk with them, and we will help them grow at a rapid rate.
Wow. I love it. I love it. I love it. We're going to come back to you, Shawn, but I want to go ahead and introduce our next guest, Mr. Joshua Shea. Joshua is a former pornography addict who now coaches both addicts and their partners suffering from betrayal trauma, and he has written 3 books. Good morning, Joshua. How are you?
Good morning, Sharifah. It's good to see you again.
It's good to see you as well. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you? What do you do? And what are you passionate about?
Well, like you mentioned, excuse me, for more than 20 years, I was a pornography addict, also an alcoholic. I got those under control about 7 years ago, started writing about it. I'm a journalist by trade. I kind of fell into coaching pornography addicts. And as an extension of that, I started working with their partners who suffer from betrayal trauma, usually because of porn addiction in their partner or infidelity itself. And now I about 75% of the people I coach are actually the partners of pornography addicts who struggle with understanding what addiction is and understanding if and what their role was in their partner's addiction, and coping with the fact that usually the addiction is unknown, and when it's revealed, especially since it's of a sexual nature, it comes with a sense of betrayal, and that's what I help them get through.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. We're going to talk a little bit more about that, Joshua, but I want to go ahead and introduce our next guest, the lovely Miss Beverly Williams. Your Employment Matters. Beverly Williams is the author of Your GPS to Employment Success: How to Find and Succeed in the Right Job, and a labor and employment law consultant and speaker who has served as an HR executive in a Fortune 500 company and consulting in various industries, both in the private and public sectors. Good morning, Beverly. How are you?
Good morning, Sharifah. How are you? Thank
I'm
you so
excited.
much for doing this. You're doing important work.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you? What do you do? And what are you passionate about?
I'm a Jersey girl who's passionate about empowering people to be more successful in employment matters. We've had employment upheavals that were unexpected. Some were planned by businesses, whether they call it offshoring, right sizing, reorgs. People have found themselves without jobs and didn't know what to do. And I realized some years ago, because I tend to pay attention to what goes on around me, I was concerned that people were not in positioning themselves to be successful with respect to their employment careers, their careers, their employment journeys, and watching people who had been able to take care of their families just break down, especially during the 2008, 2009, the Great Recession, only to find ourselves almost in a similar situation as a result of the pandemic. Phrases like food insecurity and seeing people lined up to buy at food banks to buy food, distressing. So I'm trying to get them to, if you have a 9-to-5 job, keep it unless you want to leave. And if you want to leave, there's a way you should do it to make sure that you can find another job and that you won't find yourself in dire straits, and to consider entrepreneurial endeavors with either family, friends, like-minded people, so that you can position yourself to be resilient when the employment landscape shifts.
Wow. Yes, I definitely agree with you. I definitely understand. Earl, I would love to hear your thoughts and your feedback on, especially being a veteran, what Beverly had to say.
Well, yeah. The reality of the situation, as an Army veteran, right, we see a lot of our military veterans come back, and they, if they've been to war or any type of combat zone situation, right, they are experiencing, signs and symptoms of post-traumatic stress syndrome, or they're disabled, or they have some type of medical condition, right? And we still, as a society, have not really taught ourselves how to take care of our Army, military, Marines, Air Force, Navy veterans in such a way that we can quickly reintegrate them back into either the civilian workforce or transition them over to entrepreneurial endeavors. So, as a veteran, what I would love to see and to support Beverly in is creating a program or a structure or improving the ones that already exist, so that veterans, when they come back, they have the skill sets, they have the ability to integrate back into civilian society, right? Especially after combat situation, so that they don't find themselves homeless on the streets, so they don't find themselves lacking in medical resources for their mental stability and mental health, and so that they can also feel like the country that they went off to defend really does embrace them and really does help to take care of them. It's frankly, it's honestly a shame. We should never see military veterans in the United States homeless and without a job when we look at other countries that that take care of their veterans like they're royalty.
No, you're right. I agree. We should talk. My first book, as I said, had a chapter devoted to veterans, but that book was picked. A publisher, a traditional publisher, saw my self-published book and contacted me. Who knew? But they didn't want me to include a chapter about certain topics in the second book, and I didn't. But I'm still interested in supporting veterans employment and working with them to be more successful, because employers want to support veterans. I think Americans, if they're thinking and if they're well-meaning, understand and appreciate veterans' contributions to our country and our safety. So, yes, I gladly work with you. We'll connect after the show.
Awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. I know it's not just veterans. I mean, Shawn, one of the things that you said is that you've never been an employee in your life. I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, it was something that came up actually recently. I hadn't really thought about it, but I was talking to my wife about something, and I said, I've never actually done a resume. When I went through college, a lot of my classmates and friends were looking into getting into whatever industry they were getting into, and how they should position themselves, and how they should put together their resume and their their persona, essentially. And I never thought that way. The way I thought was, okay, what business am I going to start? It was just the way that I was wired. And so, as much as I've had a breadth of experience, because I've started all these businesses on my own, where I've had to be the run different departments and different aspects on my own and learn all of those things, I've never had that experience of having to respond to someone who's my superior. Of course, we all have superiors. Ultimately, you have boards of directors, you have capital sources, lenders, and what have you, that you have to respond to in some fashion. But I've never had that experience of, okay, I report to this person and this is my manager. That's been kind of foreign to me. But taking it back to what we kind of started with helping out veterans, I think, and it's something that Earl said, is that look, it's important that we support our veterans, and just like Beverly said, employers are very interested in it. What employers are interested in is supporting their employees, because they know ultimately they'll perform better that way, and ultimately also they're interested in what their public persona is. And those are the things that move employers to doing things. And a lot of times what we show the businesses that we get into is that how you interact on things that you don't think are business is incredibly important. So getting involved in the right social causes in the right way and supporting the right groups of people in the correct way is incredibly important in terms of how your customers view you and whether they want to be your customer and have that relationship with you. Because ultimately, no matter how large you are, if you want to be an Amazon where you have millions and millions of customers, you still have that relationship. There's still a relationship that goes on with those customers. And that's what moves companies to actually make sure that they do the right thing as an entity. So that's the way we kind of look at it.
No, I absolutely agree. Especially profit-making enterprises are driven by shareholder value. And you're right, employee engagement and company branding, how the public views the company. They spend a great deal of money on both of those projects, and it's their lifeblood. If their employees aren't engaged and feeling good about what they're doing and who they're doing it for, the result is not favorable to anyone, let alone the company.
Yeah, and one thing is that people look at corporations and companies as this heartless, senseless, kind of entity that just moves for profits. The truth is, it's not really that way. It's a conglomerate of people. It's not just the CEO moving it. It's not just the founder moving it. It's the board of directors and all of the managers. And so you have all these different interests that are inside of this entity that are driving it. Yes, they can gather around and say, okay, profit is one thing we all agree on. We want to be successful. Yes, with growth we can agree on. We all want to have an entity that's a certain has grown into a certain being. They can all form around that. But then when you start looking at politics and then social causes and all of these different interests, then all of these entities that are responsible, these individuals that are responsible for this company, whether it's a small business or a larger business, they start having diverging interests of what exactly is important, how to get involved in it, to what degree get involved in it. And all of those things start having, different forms. And also the way it's perceived by their customers publicly, all of that has, there's different perspectives on that. And so those things start changing, and how a company supports the right causes and gets involved in dealing with all of these issues that are incredibly important, that becomes very, very challenging.
I definitely agree. What are your thoughts, Earl?
Well, I was just going to say, it's because of social media, right? A very profitable company can easily be canceled, just due to a few social media posts, right? We've seen it just recently, and in the terrorist attacks here in the United States on January 6th, those organizations that were involved or those people that owned businesses, and it was discovered, social media just completely just wiped those companies out. But it's really but to go to Shawn's point, it's like all of that is true, and there still has to be a way to, if we keep the subject around veterans, figure out a way to reintegrate our veterans such that everybody wins. And it's not just a feel good or a look good thing, but it's one that everybody wins. If we can all come together and figure that out, then we can start to hem up some of our weak links in the chain that we call the United States.
Interesting. Now, we had yesterday's show. If you watched yesterday's show, Dr. Shadi, who owns Vet Triage, he talked about something that was very surprising to me. He said there was a very high suicide rate, and the suicide rate with the vets was high because of social media. Not just veterans, but just vets in general, because one post on Yelp, one post on Google, one post saying that this vet was horrible or had killed their pet, then this vet would go and commit suicide. And I was like, wow, I was blown away. So I think it's America, it's people all over the world who are being influenced and affected by social media because of the negative reviews. And so often we'll give negative reviews faster than we will give positive reviews. So I think it's more than just veterans or vets. I think we're all being affected by social media. I love to hear your thoughts on the conversation, Joshua.
You're on
Joshua.
mute, Joshua.
Good call. I'm enjoying this discussion very much because prior to getting into recovery, I spent many years as the owner of a publishing company, and I had to face all of these questions and all of these issues that Shawn brings up, and they're absolutely true. It took me, about a year before I got out of that mindset of being a writer and an editor and being an actual business driver. Since I was the publisher, I was essentially the CEO. My job was really not to build magazines, of which we did 3. My job was to be out in the public. My job was to talk to the other people in the Chamber of Commerce. My job was to, make sure we had our booth at every little event in the community. And eventually it worked because what the community saw us as a force that was trying to bring the community forward. Of course, if the community moved forward, it would only help our magazine, but we were seen in such a great light as essentially these wonderful marketers for our area that everything that I did or everything I learned in the world of journalism kind of went out the window because suddenly I was cast in this other situation and I had to face so many of these questions that Shawn mentioned. And frankly, I just wasn't prepared for it. I didn't know how to navigate. I knew I needed to make more money than I spent. But aside from that, that's really all I knew. And now, 7, 8 years later, I can tell you that I am glad that I am out of that corporate life because I was not equipped for it. I had no idea what the heck I was doing. I think that a lot of people who are very good at their job or very good at what they do technically find out when they try to own a business or when they run a business that that's a completely different beast and you can be the best in
Absolutely.
your field. But if you don't know how to run a business, you are in trouble. And that's what I ultimately learned.
No, I absolutely agree. Joshua, been there, same experience.
Yeah, I'm really good if people are throwing a lot of money at me, but when things get tough and I have to make hard decisions, that's when I don't have a good track record. And I have had to, I've found much more bliss in working for myself and setting my own hours, in pursuing my passions. And maybe I don't make the money that I made 10 years ago, but I'm doing something else now that feels important. And I think that's really what's at the heart of it. And that's why, back in the day when I was doing a lot of hiring, I looked for people who were former veterans. I looked for people who were former school teachers. I looked for anybody who looked like they had passion for what they did before they arrived to me, or who did something out of a sense of duty, or that it was the right thing and it was trying to make the world a better place. And I think that, anybody who doesn't put a veteran's resume on the top of the pile may really be missing out on somebody who is a high quality human being. And in my experience in hiring, being a high quality human being is so much more important than having the exact skill set I need, because I can teach you that skill set. I can't teach you how to be a great person. So, I'm completely on board with everything that's been said to this point.
There's a wealth of information for veterans and others. Information on the free information on the internet that's very useful, very helpful, and it's almost a guide. Not a step-by-step guide, but it offers a wealth of information, useful information that will help guide veterans uh, convert their military assignments into uh, plain English. So
Yes.
that, because they have the skill sets that employers are looking for, it's just called something different.
Right.
Well, it's funny that you would say that because in my undergrad days at Austin, at Austin P State, one of the things I did to generate an income, I wrote resumes, and a lot of my clients were retiring military non-commissioned officers, senior non-commissioned officers, which would be the equivalency of a director in an organization, and majors and captains, which would be the equivalency of a CFO or a CTO. Or a CEO these days, and taking the time to do the research to learn how to transfer their military skills into civilian language, it meant that I would work on that resume for a few days, right? It meant I had to sit down with them and talk and interview them and make sure that I fully understood what they did, and then can translate that information over into action words that represented the language of the HR person that was making the decision to move that person forward. Yeah, it's out there. It just takes.
It's out there. It's probably easier to access now than it was when you first began doing it.
Right. It does. It's a lot easier, but it's out there and it's doable.
Absolutely. Now we are going to stop for a brief commercial break, and we will be right back.
You need jordansrooter.com. Get free estimates, 24-hour service, special discounts for seniors and veterans. That's jordansrooter.com. Have a home repair or some remodeling you need done? No problem. We can handle all that too. Give us a call today at 800-300-0358. At Jordan's Rooter, we take pride in our work and always make sure to get the job done right the first time. That's jordansrooter.com. We want to be your Mr. Fix-It.
I've had this problem.
Big problem.
I really needed
a good business consultant.
And I kept searching and searching.
There are so many choices.
It's really hard to find one that has all the things on my list. But I finally did it.
Yes. Thank you.
If you are looking for one as well, look no further.
Here's a really good one.
Just use mine. Use mine.
I'm very satisfied.
Definitely recommend. Problem gone.
Thank you.
If you are just now tuning in to the Roundtable Talk Show, we are speaking with some very special guests today. I'm enjoying the show. We've been speaking about entrepreneurship, business, veterans, and we're going to go ahead and continue the conversation. Yes, I'd love to hear from you, Shawn. We spoke a little bit about vets, veterans, entrepreneurship. What are your thoughts so far?
Well, it was something that Joshua brought up, and he said, when I was looking at people and trying to hire, I wanted good people. I want a person that's a good person. I can teach the skills. And a lot of times, this is what comes up over the past years, whether it's been my own business or something that I've invested in and tried to move forward. This comes up with some frequency where I tell people, yeah, the skills are fine. Oh yeah, you have a good educational background. That's fine. I need to know who you are, and what I want is can-do people that will actually go out there and roll up their sleeves and do the job. And they're not sitting there and looking at their resume as a way of conducting the job only. And so that really resonated with me, where so many times I've had this conversation either with people who are doing the hiring, or actually when I was the person doing the hiring, where I had to sort of be almost dismissive of certain things that the applicant may be very proud of, in favor of saying, hey, to me, it's more important that you have that can-do ability, that you have the right personality, that you're the right person for this job, and that you'll actually roll up your sleeves and do it. Everything else I can supply you, and we'll be patient with you on everything else. That's something I can't build inside of you. When Joshua mentioned that, it just really resonated with me.
I think one of the issues is perspective. I don't think that especially younger job seekers realize that it's not always about them. that they have to, or they should consider creating a win-win situation. You tell an interviewer what you can add, how you can add value, how you can improve a situation, what your experience brings to the table if you have experience. And if you don't have experience, to your point, Shawn, I'm a hard worker. I'll get in early, I'll leave late. I will do everything I can to make your job easier because I want to learn. I want to make a contribution to the company, and I want to be a member of a team and contribute to a team so the team can be successful. But typically people think in terms of, I have a degree now, I'm all this in a bag of chips, and now I'm going to get a job and I'm going to move up. I told my nephew, I said, when my business does better, I'll hire you. He says, oh yes, I could be a vice president. He doesn't have any background that would qualify him to be a vice president, a director, or a manager. But that's how he envisions himself. So, sometimes you just have to, that's what I tell people. You really try to create win-win situations.
It's funny that we're talking about this because I've gotten, interviews and job offers where I wasn't necessarily qualified, but I made sure and communicated and demonstrated. I just need to know what your process is for the sales process, right? How do you want the sales to be done? I need to know what my quota is. And then anything else you want to teach me, the rest, I'm just going to automatically do, right? Because that's the way that I was trained as an Army. When I was in the Army, I was trained to not sit around and wait for somebody to tell me to do something. I was trained to, you see a problem, you fix it. You go handle it. You go deal with it, right? If you need support, come back and tell people that you've done this. No, that's what my mother said I used to do as a child too. She was like, Earl, you were always independent. Like you would come to me and say, Mom, I've done this. I just need you for this and this based upon the research I've done. And that's what I take with me when I had my sales jobs. That's the one thing I love about being in sales because it allowed me to be a business within a business. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that part.
But that's not everyone's perspective.
Why would that should be everybody's perspective? Like you should think, in my opinion, regardless of whether you work for yourself or you are a business owner, you should see yourself as a business within the business if you're an employee situation, right? Because the company just provides you with resources that you don't have to deal with. And then you focus on providing the best value. And that way, when you're talking to your boss or to your leaders, you can talk from a position of value versus like, oh, because I show up here, I should get a 20 cents pay.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I absolutely agree. But
so I think, in sort of what I'm hearing, and I agree with what both of you are saying. Beverly mentioned, the way that she talks to people and what she hears. And I sort of separate it into two different things. One is being part of a team, and working as part of a team and being selfless in moving the team forward. That attitude is perfect and great. At the same time, it can be abused by a superior in that and this is what sometimes some of the causes of some of the inequalities that there are. I'm talking in terms of employees and employers, and in terms of some of the staff at the lower levels where they're really not getting a living wage out of their work. Is that kind of, you got to do the right stuff and just keep your head down and work, and eventually you'll make something out of yourself. That's true. But when it's abused is when you end up taking jobs where you cannot pay for your life. I mean, just at a very basic level, as we all know, that is very common. And there is no real path to you getting to a place where you can actually just live. Even if that upward movement isn't there, there isn't any real path for you to have a living wage. And so in some fashion, what I see right now happening, and maybe it's because of the way the workforce that characteristic that's kind of it's characterized as being selfish and all about themselves, maybe. But maybe that's part of the reason that some of the companies have had to shift now, where they are taking their lower level jobs and actually now pushing up wages, providing bonuses, providing benefits, paying for college in some instances, and providing all of those things where people are a little bit moving towards a place where they can actually have a living wage. Now, look, I keep saying this. I don't have that perspective because I never actually worked. I worked as a staff member inside of my own company because I've stuffed envelopes and I've cleaned floors, but it's been for myself.
Yeah.
It hasn't been as an employee who does not have equity, who has no real ability to grow that, and is really relying on those wages. And so, one of the things that I see that are hopefully changing is exactly that. And I don't know if it's because of that characteristics that's labeled as selfish within the current generation, but maybe that's one of the benefits that's coming out of it. But it's important at the same time to be a team player, because unless you're a team player and you're doing the things to make your team successful, it doesn't, you're not going to get anywhere as an entity.
I don't know that they're being selfish. I don't think it's selfishness. I don't think they're aware. I think that they don't know. And if you don't know, your focus is going to be on yourself. But what I'm passionate about, my call to action is manage your career. You're responsible for your career. Don't wait for someone else to manage it. Don't wait to be anointed and promoted. Wait for someone to touch you on the head and say, I'm promoting you up the chain to the next level. Know what your value is. Make sure that you know what your employer's business model is, what their goals and objectives are, and that you're contributing to them, and that you're giving as good as you get, and enhance your skill set, your marketability. It may be for your current employer, it may be for someone else, it may be for you as an entrepreneur, but that's the way I encourage people to think, because multiple revenue streams, I think, is advantageous regardless. I mean, as long as you have more than one income stream, you may be okay if one income stream dries up for whatever reason. But this great resignation that the media is talking about concerns me, because I don't think that people are aware of what's going on. There may be jobs available. The question becomes whether they have the skill sets that the people doing the hiring are looking for. I know that cybersecurity has gotten a lot of press. And I saw a segment on CBS Sunday morning where a young man was studying cybersecurity. And I was like, is that easy to do? I don't know that cybersecurity is easy to do online. I don't know. Is the vendor that's providing the training, is that a reputable vendor? So I asked someone in an online class that I was involved in if she knew a cybersecurity expert. Surprisingly, she said yes. So I'm interviewing the cybersecurity expert tomorrow for my podcast. I want him to tell people how you go about becoming a cybersecurity employee. How can you position yourself to get a job in that occupation? And what to look out for, because there are always schemers and scammers trying to take advantage of people. And these are people that genuinely want to improve their circumstance. And it just troubles me that they may be taken advantage of.
Joshua, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I was thinking about this, and in Beverly mentioning the mass or Great Resignation that's going on. This was actually happening prior to the pandemic. The gig economy was getting huge. I know that even as recently as 3 years ago, I was still doing a fair amount of freelance writing or freelance editing. And what was sad was that prices were actually falling because so many people were entering this space. Something like Fiverr came up, and suddenly the work that I was doing, you know, I would write a blog for a corporate website for $75 or $100, and suddenly there's somebody straight out of college who's offering to do it for 15, and you know, the end user or the person purchasing doesn't necessarily care about top quality. They care about having content. So that makes a lot more sense. That's part of what pushed me into this area. And I'm wondering, you know, I think it was Shawn who mentioned a selfishness of young workers. And what I wonder is, has it just been that these young people under 30, let's say, have grown up in a time of the internet where, you know, the possibilities in this world are deemed endless now. That's not the world we grew up in. That's not the information we had a chance to go on. The gig economy was already popping prior to the pandemic. And then when you have the pandemic that forces so many people out of work and so many people who can't get unemployment insurance benefits to keep them going, they have to start delivering for DoorDash or posing for OnlyFans or doing whatever it is to keep a roof over their head. I'm wondering if that's just the mindset of our younger people, and it's actually the older corporate structure that's going to have to change to fit what is wanted in the lifestyle of younger people. Because I got to admit, I would have left corporate life so long ago if I knew what the lifestyle was that I could have now. I can take a day off whenever I want. I can have 2 hours off in the middle of the afternoon if I want to go see a movie. I can eat lunch when I want. I can do so much as my own boss. I can do so much as somebody who has a couple of different income streams that I can't understand why I would ever want to return to that world. And if more people like me are telling stories like this out there, I think that's going to influence the younger generation. And we're going to see what some people may see as selfishness. Some people may see as just looking out for themselves. But really, this is cultivating a lifestyle that they want to live. And I look at it going back the last 10, 15 years. I define myself a lot on my work, probably more than I should. And I've always seen my work as part of my life, just part of my lifestyle. And frankly, it's not a matter of moving one corporate gig or one job to another. It's how do I want my lifestyle to evolve these days? And I think that is so much more of a priority for our younger people, especially those, you know, perhaps in their early to mid 20s who have had to deal with this COVID stuff for, truthfully, a significant portion of their adult life at this point. And I think that's the direction we're going to see things going.
No, I think you're right. And like I said, I don't think they're being selfish. I think it's a lack of awareness, and it's what they want to do. And you're right. They have an entrepreneurial bent that I find refreshing. They don't want to work a 9 to 5 for the rest of their life. They want to go into business for themselves. And I encourage that.
And that lifestyle, I'll tell you, if it was between you giving me $15,000 to go sit in a cubicle or $25,000 extra to go run my own company with employees again, or to stay in the lifestyle I have, I'd tell you to keep your money, because I'm so much happier, so much more content, so much healthier doing it my way and not resenting my work, not resenting my boss, not resenting other people who have power to make decisions over me, that I think the more people who take the risk and go for this lifestyle and who are successful, well, it's younger people who take risks. It's younger people who try things because they have less to lose. And I think a lot of them are finding, hey, I can deliver for DoorDash 3 hours a day. I can work on my music or my art a couple hours a day. And I can, do something else for an hour or two a day. And that keeps me happy because I'm not tied to a desk doing the same thing 8 to 10 hours a day.
Or I can work for a startup.
But the main thing is that it is the technology that we have in place that has made this possible. Without the internet, the lifestyle that, it's commonly referred to as a laptop lifestyle, this lifestyle that we have without cell phones, without the internet, without apps, none of this would, I'm not exactly sure it would be so easily available or
the computers and the laptops make accessibility
correct.
Because
literally right now, I could go onto a few websites, find a remote job that will allow me to work anywhere in the United States in most cases. Now, there are some companies out there that will allow you to work anywhere in the world as long as you have an approved VPN. So you don't have to, be stuck per se, right? But yeah, Shawn, it is literally because of the technology that makes all of this possible. Because we didn't have podcasts back in the 90s.
No.
I was going to mention something that what is happening, overall is much like the Industrial Revolution, where we had a whole lot of things really accelerate and a whole lot of people really move into owning companies and creating new technologies. We have a digital revolution right now where there are those opportunities. There's all these openings that people are right now filling up. And so the reason, 30 years ago or 40 years ago, maybe people feel those opportunities weren't there is exactly, we were in between the Industrial Revolution and the digital revolution, really. So that's part of the reason, and I love the way some people think, me maybe being one of them, because people are out there. What they do is they kind of think up what they want to do, what their dream is of creating something, and gets capital sources to pay for. And I'm on both sides of that equation, right? So some of the things that we do is invest in businesses to move them forward, and those are people looking for capital and looking for different types of resources. And in other ways, we're actually out there raising the capital where someone is paying for a certain type of business to move forward. But there's a lot of those opportunities, and what you see a lot is in people starting their own businesses, taking advantage of those opportunities, filling those holes that appear. As this revolution sort of keeps on going on. And the people that were at the forefront of that revolution are people that are in their 50s, 60s, and 70s now, believe it or not. And so you'll see a lot of people that are starting new companies that are actually 60-some-year-olds or 70-year-olds even. That sort of were in the 90s and late 80s, early 90s, were at the forefront of what was shortly to come with the internet. So anyway, and in terms of we talk about in this word selfish, I used, it keeps coming up. I don't believe that that's necessarily true, as I said before, but it's a characteristic. It's either you'll hear of selfishness or sense of entitlement, and I think those are code words for really people that are not wanting to put in the hard work and work as a team and move things forward and put in their time. And I think at the same time, there are those who want to start their own businesses and like I said, fill in those holes. So there's all these things are sort of coming to an equilibrium, and eventually they will. So we'll see how it goes.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now we are coming down to the last few minutes of the show, and what I love to do at the end of every show is just simply allow my guests the opportunity to speak directly to the audience, to everyone who is watching the show live, as well as everyone who is watching in the archives, and let them know what you want them to take away from your appearance here today. And we're going to start with you, Joshua.
Well, first, let me say thank you for inviting me onto the show, and I'm so pleased to see that you're back. I think that you offer such a wonderful resource here, and I've met so many great people through being on the show in the past. So thank you for being back. I just want to remind everybody out there that porn addiction, betrayal trauma, uh, these are really a couple of hidden problems that we don't talk about in today's society. Um, a recent study showed that about 1/3 of men under 30 believe that they have some kind of problem with pornography. In marriages or relationships where pornography use is revealed, upwards of 65% of the partners suffer from betrayal trauma, wondering if they're enough, wondering what they did. There are far too few resources out there, far too few discussions about this because it's a very taboo subject. If you're having any issues with pornography addiction, with your pornography use, or if you have a partner who uses pornography excessively, or you've just discovered it and are trying to make sense of things, please visit me at paddictrecovery.com. I can help you wade through a lot of this stuff. I've been there. I've helped a lot of other people. You don't have to suffer silently. And I want to thank all my panel mates for such a great discussion today. I had a really good time.
Thank you, Joshua. Mr. Earl, what do you have for us?
Well, what I have for you is this: whether you are a business owner or a employee, please make sure that you properly ensure your success, regardless of what level it is, whether you feel that you don't have it or that you do have it. Please ensure, especially here in the state of California, where the laws are designed, to basically work against you in the event of a car accident or you cause damage to somebody else. The last thing that you want to have is to have worked yourself, and achieved a level of success and then lose it because you had a car accident and you were improperly insured, or you bought, cheap insurance thinking that you had coverage, but then discovered that's not covered. And then you have to pay out of pocket. And you can also reach me, just Google my name, or you can find me on TikTok at Agent Earl, right? Or you can also find me at agents.farmers.com/ejones. And I'm happy to have a conversation with you about protecting your success, protecting what you've created so that you can be sure that you have options when things go south.
And what kind of TikTok videos do you do?
Well, primarily I talk about insurance related stuff. And now after starting to get my groove with TikTok and starting to understand it better, I'm now starting to try to do more situational videos and try to add a little bit of entertainment and some jokes to it so that people can stay engaged. But I just posted a video the other day about the fact that in the state of California, did you know that teenage drivers have restrictions? Did you know that they cannot drive a car under the age of 18 without an adult age 25 and older in the car with close access to the steering wheel, so driver's side seat? If that teenager has an accident, that's not covered under the auto insurance because that's a violation of law. If that same teenager has their driver's license for the first year up to the age of 18, they cannot drive with anybody in the car under the age of 25.
Wow. A lot of information. I have to look into that. Thank you, Earl. Appreciate you. Mr. Shawn, what do you have for us today?
Oh, I'll be pretty quick. I mean, in my opinion, the thing to take away is, look, just go out there and just do it. I mean, I understand that's Nike's logo, but I'm telling you, I see so many people that actually do not take that step. And that's where that's the biggest failure of all, is out of fear of not succeeding, out of fear of falling flat on your face, out of fear of not getting to where you want to get to, you end up not taking those first steps, and never doing the things that you dream of, that you want to do. And so my biggest thing to people is just take that first step and go ahead and do it. And all of us, whoever has done that, has had failures and successes, but those failures happen. It's okay, and use them as stepping stones and learning experiences, and move forward. But don't let that, prevent you from doing what you dream of and what you want to do.
Thank you, Miss Beverly. What do you have for the people?
First of all, again, congratulations on your expansion of your platforms. It's wonderful. You're providing a service that so many people can benefit from. Please, I would hope that your viewers would visit my website at www.youremploymentmatters.com. My podcast is available there, and also on iTunes, Spotify, and other podcast platforms. A wealth of free information. I interviewed a Pulitzer Prize winning journalist just a few weeks ago. I've made sure I've been intentional about being inclusive, about the topics, about where people are from, the countries they're from, the states they're from. It's not just an East Coast or West Coast people that are being interviewed. Please, there's a wealth of free information that people who are looking for work may find beneficial. Please be deliberate and intentional about your careers and your employment. And please consider buying Your GPS to Employment Success, my second book, which is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and at independent bookstores. And thank you again.
Thank you. I want to thank everyone. I want to thank all of the guests for being on the Roundtable Talk Show today. And I especially want to thank everyone who tuned in to watch the show live, as well as everyone who is watching it in the archives. I definitely appreciate your support. It feels wonderful, absolutely wonderful to come back after all these months and still have a warm reception. Like I said before, it's like a family reunion, being able to speak to everyone. But please support our guests. Visit their websites, follow them on social media, reach out to them, send them a message. And when you do, please let them know Sharifah Hardie says hi. Now, if you're interested in being a guest or more ways that I can help your business, please visit my website at AskSharifah.com. Until tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Pacific, everyone have a safe and a blessed day. Bye now.